Food Systems Dialogue. My name is Lufingo Mamakamba, and I'm with the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture, hosted by FAO in Rome. It's an honor for us and a privilege for me to be with you today. ASEAN Climate Resilience Network, in partnership with GACSA, the institution that I'm with, and the UN-FAO Regional Asia Pacific Office, is convening this three-part series, Independent Food Systems Summit Dialogue series, to give stakeholders from the ASEAN region an opportunity to contribute to designing the climate-friendly food systems for the future. We must adopt good practices that protect, manage, and restore nature, while also globally meeting the fundamental human right to healthy and nutritious food for all. As I had mentioned, this is a three-part series dialogue aligned with the Food Systems Summit Action Track number 3, talking about boost nature positive production. Today, we're going to focus on innovation, innovative ideas generation to support nature positive sustainable food systems. We will then follow the next series on connection of the innovation ideas to food systems. And lastly, we'll crown everything off with the role of ASEAN-CRN as an innovative platform for food systems transformation. What a joy. Colleagues, partners, I'm so delighted that we have right now over 650 registrations from more than 80 countries. This is testament, and I want to say thank you once again for the support and the interest in building a sustainable food system. Before we move any further, I would like to call upon my colleague, Yana Stankova from GACSA, to briefly guide us through this platform that we're using and any other issues that we need to be aware of. Over to you, Yana.
Thank you very much, Lufingo. Hello, everyone. So I would like to welcome you to this very interesting and interactive dialogue. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. So by participating, you are showing your willingness to be recorded. This dialogue will be then available on GACSA YouTube channel. I would like to inform you that please use the chat option for your introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And if you have any questions for the panelists, use the Q&A section, which is at the bottom panel in your Zoom. If you have any problems with connections, we will try to fix it, especially from our side. So please bear with us because we all know it sometimes happens. We would like to wish you a very nice dialogue. Please participate in the polls that will be available during this interactive session, and please enjoy yourselves. Thank you very much. Over to you, Lufingo.
Wow, thank you very much, Hannah. Really appreciate it. So as we get started, we would like to give you an overview of what we're going to be dealing with today and how we intend to spend your precious 90 minutes with us. As an overview, we'll start off with a 15-minute opening session with 2 eminent speakers, whom I will introduce one by one. We'll follow by 2 presentations and a short video presentation to tee us off into our main discussions. Our curator, Dada, will then guide us through a roundtable discussion and followed by a brief synthesis of the key messages that have come out from the discussions. And then we will end up with 3 closing remarks. I'm sure we're going to have a very fruitful deliberations on this one. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited today and honored to introduce to you 2 eminent speakers to provide introductory remarks. Our next speaker is Thailand, the chair of ASEAN-CRN, represented here by the Director General of the Department of Agriculture of Thailand. Mr. Srikul, the Chief Senior Expert, will deliver the introductory remarks on his behalf. Over to you, Mr. Srikul.
Thank you. It is my honor to deliver the opening remarks on behalf of Mr. Pichet Viriyapaha, Director General of Department of Agriculture as the ASEAN Climate Resilience Network Chair. Distinguished participants all over the globe, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon here in Bangkok, Thailand, through the Department of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives. Would like to express our appreciation to the convener of the webinar, the ASEAN Climate Resilience Network, UN, FAO, and the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture, for being able to gather key stakeholders from the Southeast Asia region on a lead up to the UN Food System Summit this year. The Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, Thailand, is also in full preparation for the United Nations Food System Summit 2021 dialogue, recognizing the importance of the 5 action tracks as our contribution to transform the way the world producer and consumer think about the world food system, taking action to healthier, more sustainable, and equitable food systems. The ASEAN Climate Resilience Network, chaired by Thailand and founded by the Agriculture Research Departments of 10 member states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, and its many development representative partners has worked hard in the last 6 years to assist with goal and strategy to ASEAN that contribute to sustainable food production, addressing the impact of climate change facing the agriculture sector. For example, the ASEAN Food, Agriculture and Forestry Cooperation Vision 2025, implemented by various working groups at the national level, in effect contribute to several relevant UN Sustainable Development Goals. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of food of our life, that we can actually work from home, limit our travels, no buy clothes and shoes, but food is necessary for our health and sustenance. Meanwhile, our agricultural sector, which primarily produce our food, continue to face the impact of climate change. Our neighbor, the Philippines, for example, welcomed several exceptionally strong typhoons during the pandemic. Our food production base suffered the most from these extreme weather events. We are therefore fortunate to be able to have this regional dialogue leading to the UN Food System Summit that give us an opportunity to shape policy that reflect the region's needs and get the proper support, financial and technical, to reach Southeast Asia. ASEAN has recently developed its recovery framework with sustainable agriculture and climate smart agriculture emphasized as tools that will bring us to our post-COVID recovery. It is Thailand's wish that this regional dialogue will contribute towards the evaluation and implementation of this particular focus within the ASEAN recovery framework. I understand that this is the first of the series of 3 dialogues. And for this first session, we have been invited to bring about our idea on innovations that are climate friendly and nature-based. I hope we will have a dynamic exchange of experience and insights. Thailand as chair of ASEAN Climate Resilience Network is therefore very happy to welcome you all to meet this event. The first regional dialogue for Southeast Asia leads to the UN Food System Summit this year, and I now declare this dialogue in Asian region open. Thank you very much. สวัสดีครับ
Thank you very much, Mr. Circle, for teeing us off and for outlining the vision of a sustainable food system in ASEAN, and also highlighting the opportunity of the region to the contribution, not just COVID recovery, but also transforming our food systems. Our next speaker is Dr. Martin Freak, who will outline the roadmap towards the 2021 UN Food System Summit and its relevance to the SDGs. Dr. Martin Freak is the deputy to the special envoy for the 2021 UN Food System Summit. He is also the senior director for policy and program coordination at the UNFSSD. He previously served as director for climate, energy, and tenure division at FAO. Over to you, Dr. Freak.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good morning from Germany. Good afternoon for you. It's a pleasure to be here and to address this audience and to briefly explain you what the Food System Summit is and what it's trying to achieve. The summit has been initiated by the 3 Rome-based agencies, but it's convened by the Secretary General of the United Nations, and it's an SDG summit. The summit takes place because the Secretary General wants to highlight the central importance of food systems for the achievement not only of SDG 2, but really of every single SDG that is out there. And you know, in the community, and I'm part of that community since many years, there is big appreciation of this initiative of the Secretary General, because for too long we have been looking at only isolated aspects of food production for the SDGs. But if you take everything together, if you look at food as a system, you're basically looking at the biggest contributor to climate change. It's well more than 1/3. And if you think, for example, how much debate went into air transport, and you compare that to the magnitude of food systems, you see that it's about time to speak about it. But in the midst of a pandemic, and I'm talking to you from home, as so many other people these days, we also need to understand that a situation like this pandemic is directly impacting our food systems. We have seen even before COVID, the number of hungry and malnourished people going up, and COVID has even aggravated this situation. And it shows you another fact, and that is so central for equity and fairness and climate justice, which is that it's particularly those who are producing food, who are working in the food systems, who are suffering most, not only from COVID. And we have seen, for example, that many meat processing factories all over the world are hotspots of the COVID pandemic, but also suffering under climate change impact, malnutrition, and this obviously has to change. So the way it has to change was described by the Secretary General and the Special Envoy, Dr. Kalibata, as doing 2 things, a people summit and an action summit. And you know, I have been a diplomat for 25 years, but I can tell you the level of engagement which is possible with the Food System Summit is something I haven't seen in my professional life so far. Now, let me give you a couple of examples where this is so obvious. And one of them is the Food System Summit dialogue, such as this one, because we are going to every single country of the United Nations and offering to do a national Food System Summit dialogues, including all of the stakeholders of a country. And we are seeing that even the start of that, asking a country to nominate a national convener, is already triggering a discussion, which is really helpful because there is a competition and a healthy political competition. as a Minister of Agriculture wants to do it, a Minister of Environment wants to do it, a Minister of Youth maybe, Minister of Health. And by doing so, we are bringing all of the government together, but maybe even more importantly, all of society around these dialogues. And then in addition, and this is where you are today, there are independent dialogues. So people who are committed, and here it's GACSA, people who feel strongly about food systems can convene these dialogues to get the discussion starting, to bringing the connections together. And the same idea of a community is on our website, foodsystems.community. And I will put all of the web resources in the chat after my little intervention. On foodsystems.community, we want to build a global community of food systems thinkers and practitioners, but also many local connections. And there is an extra site on food systems community for young people, because it's so important to get young people interested and engaged in food systems. There will also be a series of global dialogues on important issues, such as women in food systems and food production, which I wanted to highlight. There's a champions network, which is approaching 100 champions from all over the planet who are helping us spreading the word and engaging with people. And then there are the 5 action tracks. Number 1, access to safe and nutritious food for everyone. Number 2, a shift to healthier and more sustainable diets. Number 3 is about nature positive production. And, you know, with my background, I feel very strongly about that, because it's in many instances not good enough to be sustainable. In many instances, we have to be restorative. We have to repair the damage of the past. We have to undo the mistakes of the past in order to come back within the planetary boundaries that we need to. So that's action track 3. Action track 4 is all about the people in the food systems, because it's working on livelihoods and how to improve them. And 5, and you know, the previous speaker just emphasized on the Philippines and the impacts of climate change. 5 is on resilience, and really how we build food systems that are more resilient against shocks. All of these 5 action tracks, again, have a site on foodsystems.community, so you can continue to engage and discuss with us there. And then, not least, every one of you can register to become a food systems hero on our UN website. And I'm very happy to continue this discussion also via Twitter. I'm on @CMFrick, but we have also a collective Twitter handle @Food Systems. So with that, thank you very much for engaging, and I'm hoping this is not only the first of a series of 3, as I understand, but it is an ongoing engagement with all of you, because we cannot come to the solutions, we cannot move on with food systems if we are not able to really engage people everywhere from the bottom up. And back to you, moderator. Thank you very much indeed.
Wow. Thank you very much for those introductory remarks. We need bold new actions to transform the way we produce and consume our food, as you mentioned. We need to look at food as a system. Sustainable food systems will not just help to end hunger. They can help the world to achieve critical progress towards on all 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I like the way how you put it, Dr. Frick. I like the way you said we are contributing to and building a food systems community. We are all in it together. Thank you very much, Dr. Frick. Thank you very much, Mr. Surakil, for your dedication and support. It's my privilege now to call upon our curator, Dada Bakudo, who is also the convener of the ASEAN Climate Resilience Network. And she will take us through our deliberations. Over to you, Dada. Sorry, Dada, you're muted.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm gonna diverge away from a little bit from the script I'm given and tell you that there are so many of you on the participants list And we are really very glad with the diversity. There's already a question, where are the farmers? Please, we will have a discussion with our farmer representatives from Indonesia pretty soon. So hold on tight to your horses. And we really want to hear your voice, as we said at the beginning. As Dr. Martin Frick said, we are 9 years away from ringing the final bell, from that immovable deadline we set, zero hunger by 2030. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that expression, zero hunger. So back in 2015, 2030 seems so far and so doable. But now it's coming ever so close. And we know that when our food systems fail, the resulting disorder threatens our education, health, economy, as well as human rights, peace, and security. On top of that, the challenges posed by climate change and the risks connected with the COVID-19 pandemic are far-reaching and complex. Just to give you an idea, the 2020 State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report that the pandemic may have added between 83 and 132 million people to the total number of undernourished in the world in 2020 alone. So on top of that, current pressures on the planet's natural resources will further increase unless consumption and production patterns become more sustainable. So we have heard about the Food System Summit from Dr. Martin Frick, the roadmap and the processes. And with that, I now have the privilege to call upon Dr. João Compari, who will give us an overview of the Food Systems Action Track 3. Action Track 3, as we all know, is the focus of our discussion for today. Over to you, Yana, for Dr. João Compari.
Yes, thank you very much, Dada. Sorry, I apologize. Just a second.
Dr. João Compari, by the way, to everyone, is based in Brazil, and he is quite, and you might understand that he's still sleeping at the moment, so has recorded to us a very nice video message to all of us. Yana. I'm sorry, but Yana, we are not hearing any sound.
Just a second, I'm trying to fix this.
I just would like to introduce Dr. Compari as the video is being fixed. Dr. Compari is the leader of the food practice for WWF International. He's also the chair of the UN Food Systems for Summit Action Track 3, our topic for today. And he has held technical and executive positions in multilateral and bilateral agencies, such as the World Bank, UNDP, and DFID. And currently he's also working with the federal government of Brazil under the Ministry of Environment. We have asked Dr. Compari to explain to us the intricacies of Action Track 3 and how your voices can be sent over to shape Action Track 3 of the Food Systems Summit.
Thank you, Dada. I will try right now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join this dialogue, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to speak to you today. As the first independent food system dialogue in Southeast Asia, today's event is extremely important. Of course, this is just the first in a series of 3 events, so you will have other chances to share your ideas and contribute to the development of game-changing solutions for nature-positive food production. These solutions are being gathered through Action Track 3 of the Food System Summit. The overarching goal of Action Track 3 is to globally meet the fundamental human right to healthy and nutritious food while operating within planetary boundaries. Game-changing solutions being developed by Action Track 3 are focused on protecting, sustainably managing, and restoring ecosystems, so that ecosystem services, including food production, are optimized for the benefit of people, nature, and climate. Although I chair Action Track 3, I can say that all Action Track chairs are very excited to see what comes from these dialogues and from this region in particular. Southeast Asia is an incredibly vibrant, dynamic region, known for innovating to solve the unique challenges that you face. Moreover, how Southeast Asia approaches food system transformation over the next few years will have a great impact on achieving a globally sustainable food system. The region is home to some of the fastest growing populations and most rapidly expanding economies. Food production provides livelihoods to millions of people in the region. For instance, palm oil in Malaysia or Indonesia, rice in Thailand, fish in Vietnam. As with all food systems, we need to see increased adoption of nature-positive production practices in Southeast Asia. But as economies develop, we must also ensure everyone has healthy and nutritious food, that jobs are created, and that indigenous peoples and local communities are supported, and the rights of women and children are strengthened. To date, Action Track 3 has been gathering game-changing ideas via online submissions, public forum, and national dialogues organized by governments. Already we are seeing exciting ideas around issues like sustaining and expanding blue food production systems, increasing agrobiodiversity, and scaling out the adoption of agroecological practices and principles, and transforming commodity supply chains to tackle deforestation and conversion of natural habitats. The Food System Summit dialogues are an integral part of further developing solutions. They provide you with pathways to build on efforts already underway, share new ideas, and set out intentions and commitments in the run-up to the summit. The output of your dialogues will be added to the existing solutions, and there will be opportunities to review and contribute in partnership with other interested stakeholders. We anticipate this consultation will happen in early April. There is an online Food System Summit social community through which you can all share content on an ongoing basis. I urge you all to join the community, as we must increase Asian representation in our discussions and raise your voices. It's optimized for mobile phones, and so you can share it with your friends and fellow food system partners. Even if people are unable to join in a long dialogue, they can contribute via these online communities. The Food System Summit can help address real needs of people in all corners of the globe, in many cases by leveraging existing solutions that, when scaled, can really unlock system-wide impacts. Action Track 3 and the Summit can drive innovation, and innovation can be technological, social, and institutional, providing farmers and fishers with access to tools and finance which enable nature-positive production. 2021 represents a unique opportunity to connect decision-making, aligning outcomes of the Food System Summit with those of COP26, the Climate Summit, the Biodiversity COP, the CBD, and the Land COP, hosted by UNFSSD. These agendas and policies of food, nature, climate, and development must be integrated as we move forward. But the journey does not end at the Food System Summit. It is a catalytic moment to bring stakeholders together and to drive urgent action. But we cannot come away from the Food System Summit with just more commitments. Governments, businesses, civil society organizations, farmers and fishers everywhere must all be already implementing transformational solutions by the end of the year. We are just 9 harvests away from 2030, when we are due to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals. That's just 9 more chances to change how we produce food. Dialogues like today are invaluable in uncovering the needs, innovations, and ideas that will help us deliver the 2030 Sustainability Agenda. Once more, I thank you for committing your time to this dialogue, and I can't wait to hear the ideas emanating from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Campari. I think with your presentation, I hope our participants have learned how to better engage with the food system dialogue and with the summit, and to be assured that their voices will be translated by participating in dialogues such as this. It is also clear our efforts require transsectoral platforms, multidisciplinary actions, and a systems approach that takes into account the necessary linkages between food production and consumption and nutritional health, as well as the underlying socioeconomic, biophysical, cultural, and institutional elements that ultimately affect the quantity, quality, and accessibility of food, as well as health and well-being. That's a very long sentence, my friends, but I hope that that somehow makes sense out to all of you. I also would like to invite all of you, because our timing is limited, to just put your thoughts and messages on the chat box, and be assured that we are documenting them and that it will continue in our discussion. As we said, this is a series of 3, so we hope we will get back to you on those. Going back, the need for a food system approach recognizes and analyzes the relationship among sustainable use of natural resources, agriculture, food, nutrition, and resilience. In September 2020 last year, the FAO Regional Conference for Asia and the Pacific highlighted the need in connection with the preparatory process for the UN Food System Summit to develop innovative, evidence-based, and analytical approaches to food system policy and governance, and to improve targeting for investment and innovation. So in this sense, I am honored to call upon our next presenter to give us an overview on the need for a sustainable and resilient food systems approach in Asia and the Pacific region. I would like to introduce my colleague, Bo Damen, who is one of the co-organizers through FAO Regional Asia Pacific Office, to give us this talk. Bo is the Natural Resource Officer under the Climate Change and Bioenergy for FAO Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Bo also leads so many initiatives. One of them is regional initiatives to scale up climate finance investments in the agriculture and land use sectors. There's many more accolades, but take it away, Bo. Over to you, Bo.
Thank you, Dada. Let me just, I've got some visuals for everybody so that hopefully it can help communicate my message today. Okay. Is that up? Hang on, I'll just make sure. Okay. Dada, can you let me know if the right screen comes up?
Yeah, but it's quite small.
Okay, hang on. Let me switch that around. I'll put this over. Oh, sorry, hang on. I'll just stop sharing for a minute and then I'll put it in another window.
I just would like to maybe give a few words about your presentation. Bo's presentation will give us an overview of the state of food systems in Asia and the Pacific. We bring the discussions from the UN Food System Summit in general to the region now. We are now going to our own region, and let's see what Bo has to say. He's got very nice graphs to show us the state of affairs in the region.
Thank you, Dada, for that introduction, and sorry for the delay, everybody, in putting this up in front of you. Hopefully it's clear now. Yeah, on behalf of the FAO Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, I wanted to extend another warm welcome to everybody this afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you happen to be at the moment. What I will present today is something of a synthesis of work that I have been involved with over the past few years with a number of colleagues at the FAO Regional Office to promote sustainable and resilient food systems in the region. Food systems retain a number of core common elements that I'll be going through in a little bit of detail as they relate to the region. And these can include food system outcomes, including food security and nutrition, societal drivers that influence priorities within food systems, including policy and cultural norms, core food system components, including production and distribution systems, as well as the natural environment, including the biosphere and atmosphere, for example. Now, the food system itself does not work in isolation, and it interacts with other key systems such as energy, trade, and health. And a sustainable food system is one that delivers food security and nutrition for all in a way that will not compromise the economic, social, and environmental basis to generate food security and nutrition for future generations. Now, in our work at FAO, resilience is a crucial complementary component of sustainable food systems. And this is because shocks of different sizes and frequency can impact on multiple food system elements, causing productivity losses, disruption in markets, increased prices, volatility, and overall system instability. So these impacts are important because they tend to flow on to the most vulnerable and food insecure in greater measure because they have less capacity to manage these risks. Now, to move along, reflecting on the outcomes of food systems in the region, there has been a considerable level of success in reducing food insecurity over the past few decades, and particularly in Southeast Asia. 50 years ago, Southeast Asia was still characterized by high levels of undernourishment, heavy dependence on agriculture for employment, and also low levels of productivity. If we fast forward to 2015 and the end of the Millennium Development Goal period, Southeast Asia had overshot MDC 1C, the hunger target, for halving between 1990 and 2015, the proportion of people who suffer from hunger, reducing the overall proportion by 68.5%. Now, this story was a story of improved agricultural productivity in large part, resulting from public investment and policy reforms, which were a core driver of this success. These reforms and these investments stimulated broad-based economic growth that led to dramatic poverty reduction and also increased food security across the region. Now, what is often not discussed is the role that urbanization played in this story. Urbanization is not just about the megacities that are distributed throughout the region. Over the past few decades, productivity in other sectors of the economy has often outpaced agriculture, despite the relatively high levels of productivity growth in agriculture over the past few decades. Now, what this has done is it led people of prime working age to migrate to urban areas to find work. And this is reflected to a certain extent in the decline of the share of agricultural GDP and employment in countries in the region, particularly over the last few decades. Now, some of the fastest growth in urbanization in the region has occurred in small and medium towns in and around rural areas. As a result, non-farm income is a crucial and growing component of rural livelihoods in the region. And it's important to keep in mind that urban centres are not just consumers of agricultural produce. Urban centres in rural locations are also key actors in the food value chain, as well as investors in the rural economy. Increasing urban populations around the region also drive food system trends through their evolving tastes and preferences. Consumption of animal products, oils, fats, and even wheat are expected to grow over the coming decade, while growth in consumption of some other products, including rice, for example, will flatten somewhat. Southeast Asia, as can be seen from this graph, is relatively well integrated into global agricultural product chains, particularly for certain products. And as a result, agricultural businesses in the region, including rural, small and medium enterprises, will have opportunities to position themselves to take advantages of growing demand for food globally over the coming decades. These agricultural businesses will also have opportunities for innovation and growth that are linked to building on underlying trends for increased mechanization and dissemination of information and communication technologies across the region. And research by FAO and its partners would indicate that efforts to strengthen research and development, farmers' access to finance, agriculture and rural infrastructure, and improved environmental standards could bring a range of benefits for farmers, the environment, and consumers. Looking ahead, on food security and malnutrition in the region, poverty and inequality will continue to be the primary drivers of poor outcomes. Widening gaps between productivity and earnings in agriculture and the non-farm sectors has created imbalances, including income inequality. An increasingly urbanized population has also brought changing food preferences. More people are eating outside the home. Many people, particularly in urban areas, also have increased preference for processed and convenience foods that are often less nutritious and high in salt, sugar, and fat. Diet-related non-communicable diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, and kidney disease, are now the largest health and mortality risk in the region. So policies to date that have focused on maximizing agricultural output and productivity have inadvertently contributed to this situation by driving down the prices of basic calories, while simultaneously driving up the price of more nutritious foods. And despite great progress in tackling hunger in the region in the past, evidence suggests that this progress may have stalled. When we were preparing our presentation for the regional conference that Data mentioned at the outset of my presentation, there were still 61 million people in Southeast Asia that were suffering from undernourishment. Meanwhile, there was a growing proportion of people in the region that are overweight and obese. The production and productivity-centric approaches that have characterized food systems to date have also had a significant impact on the environment, resulting in water stress and scarcity, unprecedented loss of biodiversity and degradation of natural systems, pollution such as, but not limited to, greenhouse gas emissions, high levels of vulnerability and risk from extreme events, including extreme climate events, as well as weaknesses to other unexpected shocks, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, which has resulted in many food system actors being able to perform key tasks, increasing the risk of wastage, drops in productivity, market restrictions, and other associated problems. So the mixed outcomes of the prevailing food system highlight the need to transition toward a more sustainable and resilient food system. And in the face of these trends, at FAO and the regional office here, there are some key principles that we keep in mind when thinking about how to promote sustainable and resilient food systems in the region. So firstly, create an enabling environment that promotes economic growth in an environmentally sustainable manner and simultaneously allows both men and women a range of opportunities to take initiative and control of their own lives. Create basic infrastructure that lowers transaction costs to participating in markets. Work with the private sector and markets whenever possible, as the private sector is responsible for the bulk of farm and economy-wide investment, but regulate when needed. Give special consideration to the interests of the poor and marginalized in both cities and the countryside, as they do not have a voice in markets due to their low purchasing power. And finally, give special consideration to youth, as they are the future of the agricultural systems, but also the future of the world. So with these principles in mind, I'd like to close with an overview of some examples of how FAO and its member countries and partners in Southeast Asia are working to adopt a more sustainable and resilient food systems approach. Now, countries are transforming food systems with dedicated policies and investment plans. For example, in Indonesia, the Ministry of National Development and Planning has formulated a 5-year national development plan aimed at ameliorating food insecurity, combating all forms of malnutrition, and incentivizing agriculture towards the production of healthy diets. Countries are mainstreaming disaster and climate risk management in agriculture for resilient food systems. For example, in the Philippines, the government has developed integrated agriculture action plans on disaster risk reduction to mainstream these interventions into sector policies and plans. Countries are working to better understand food system linkages to develop multi-sectoral solutions, as well as learning from COVID-19. For example, ASEAN member states, as was mentioned in our opening address, have adopted a comprehensive recovery framework to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, which includes proactive fiscal measures, targeting things such as agricultural recovery and improved social and environmental outcomes. Countries are boosting innovation, applying new technologies and fostering partnerships to stimulate change. For example, countries in Southeast Asia have adopted e-agriculture strategies to promote the use of information and communication technologies in everything from crop production technology packages to the verification of food safety and food product traceability. Another example comes from work that FAO was doing with a number of countries in the region, including Cambodia, Indonesia, Myanmar, and Vietnam, to work with the Sustainable Rice Landscapes Initiative, bringing together public and private sector partners to develop markets for more sustainable agricultural products. And finally, countries are addressing the links between climate change and emergency situations. For example, in the Philippines, One Health measures are being incorporated into a risk-based national import control framework for agriculture. So I hope this overview and these examples will help stimulate some of your thinking about the types of action and innovation we need to transition to a more sustainable, nature positive and resilient food system in Southeast Asia. And I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Bo, for such a comprehensive presentation. There's so much to unpack from your presentation. And I'm afraid we don't have time for question and answer, but I would like to actually encourage you to write your questions on the Q&A. And I would like to also invite you more than that to actually answer some of the questions already there if you feel like you are in a position of expertise or knowledge or even with your experience to answer some of the questions. In that way, even though the pandemic has prevented us from interacting physically with one another, we can all still interact in this manner. I know I've looked at all 161 participants, and not even to mention our 30 participants from a room in the Thailand Department of Agriculture. I know that we can all have an interactive session where you are answering and sending questions as well from one another. So Bo, that has been such a great presentation. And I think that there will be a lot to unpack from there. And sometimes it could seem sound abstract, even though we really appreciate your presentation, providing examples from the region of what these innovations are about. Actually, I would like to invite everyone to now travel with me and join me as we travel to the Philippines in order to see the kind of innovation that we are actually looking forward to. One of the examples of the innovation that we're looking forward to. We don't want you to be stuck on this particular example. There are many kinds of examples, but I would like you to travel with me to the Philippines and learn about the black soldier flies as being implemented and piloted by a farm called Kalawili Farm, based in El Nido, Palawan, Philippines. A lot of you might have heard of El Nido as a very picturesque tourist destination, but this innovation is also happening there. And this kind of innovation, we hope, will reflect a lot of what Bo has shared in terms of practicality and implementation of the innovation that we are looking for. This is a presentation by Thierry Giron to show us just very briefly what black soldier flies are all about. And we hope that you would enjoy it. Yana, take it away.
Thank you very much, Dada, playing the video. Please, everyone, bear with the sound because how Dada mentioned, it's directly from the farm, so we hope you fully enjoy.
Good morning and welcome to the Kalawili Black Soldier Fly Farm. What we're doing here is transforming any kind of organic waste into gold. I've got here waste from a brewery. But I've got at my disposal an army of larvae coming from the fly, black soldier fly. And this little larva, all they do is digest. They eat, and eat. And at the end of the day, they produce magnificent fertilizer. It's totally organic. There's absolutely no additive to it. It's the perfect component for farmers. So how do we do that? Well, it's simple. I can take this, and all I need to do is to dump it into these bins here. And in these bins, there is several thousands of larvae. And the next day I come, and what I see is that all the weights have been digested. Here are the larvae, how it works. See them? They are digesting the organic waste and producing fertilizer. The facility here is very well adapted to third world countries. It's very easy to build. Facility like this costs a couple of $1,000 US. It's very simple material. All we have is concrete, wood, a bit of roof, and some protection here against insects and mice and so on. It's very scalable. We can train people to do it. What I would like to do is this to be more duplicated all around the Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and so on.
Over to you, Dada. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to say that Thierry and his partner Dusty are with us here. And so if there's any question, just shoot it away towards their direction and they would be happy to answer as well. That is, I think, an amazing clip. It was done really, I think, from very, not high HD camera. I think Dusty just used her phone camera. And the main principles of innovation such as this is that it lowers greenhouse gas emission by dissecting or digesting our biofood waste, which is a lot of part of the UN Food System Summit. It lowers greenhouse gas emissions. It digests bio-waste. It also provides protein supplement. As you can see, the chickens were eating the byproduct of the black soldier flies. But what do I know? I'm not a technical farmer, so it's better that you really just direct your attention toward your questions towards Thierry, Dusty, also Bo, for your conceptual and technical questions on examples within Southeast Asia. Also, there are questions on the Q&A about potential funding for this. So I would like to invite members of the audience. I know GIZ is listening. FAO is also in the panel. There's also a special section from GIZ on investments also in the panel. There's also, I hope Martin is still around, Martin Frick. And I hope that the chair of GACSA, representing the government of Netherlands with some funding opportunities, can also provide answers. Please just go ahead to the question and answer and interact with our participants. So there's really, as Zhao introduced to us, there's a lot of innovation that is now needed to boost nature positive production. And I hope that you enjoy the videos, one video that was shown to us. What we are really after, as we said, we wanted interaction and engagement from you participants, is that to come out and let us know. I believe that we as a region have a lot of interesting, innovative ideas that needs to be shared and showcased, not just the black soldier flies from the Philippines. In fact, there are more black soldier flies as well in Indonesia. These are the kind of ideas that we need to shape pathways to sustainable food systems that will inform the ASEAN region's contribution to the 2021 UN Food Systems Summit. So in order to deepen our interaction, we have invited a STEAM panel of experts and practitioners to give us insights on this topic And I invite them now for a quick round of self-introduction. Our panelists, can you briefly introduce yourselves? Let's start with the farmers group from Aliansi Petani, Indonesia. Ibu Mubayina Jauhari, are you there? And Ibu Ika Krishnayananti, can you just briefly introduce yourselves? They are connecting in a village somewhere, I think in Kalimantan.
Hi, Dada.
Hi, Ibu Ika.
Hi.
Is that you?
Yes.
Hi, there you are. Okay.
This is Ika, yeah, and Mrs. Mubayina on my left.
Hello.
We are in the village now in Banjarnegara district, Central Java province of Indonesia. We are from Indonesian Peasant Alliance. She is, Mrs. Mubayina is the farmer leader, a woman who has been conducted agroecology practices. And I am from API, Indonesia Peasant Alliance. Thank you, Dada.
Thank you very much. We will hear from you soon. And may I invite our representatives from the government, Dr. Margaret Yuvatana.
Hello, I'm Margaret Yuvatana. Okay, I am a policy and plan specialist of the Planning and Technical Division of the Department of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperation.
Pertanian Thailand, spesialis perencanaan dan kebijakan.
As well, right?
Ibu Ika, you have to mute yourself. Okay. Kun Margaret, please continue.
Okay, so I'm one of the pioneering member of the ASEAN Climate Resilience Network. So they normally call me as the grandmother of ASEAN-CRN. So hopefully we could interact more at this event. Thank you. Back to you, Dada.
Thank you, Dr. Yuvatana. I really miss you. And here also representing the Intergovernmental Association of Southeast Asian Nation, Dian Sukmajaya from the Food, Agriculture, Forestry Division of the ASEAN Secretariat. Hello, Dian.
Hello, Dada. Good morning and good afternoon, colleagues and participants. I'm happy to be here. I am Dian Sukmajaya, posting as a senior officer in Food, Agriculture and Forestry at the ASEAN Secretariat based in Jakarta, but now I'm working from home in Bogor. I am responsible for ASEAN cooperation in forestry, agriculture research development, agriculture cooperative, as well as food security and climate change issue. I'm happy to be here and thank to FAO and organizer for inviting ASEAN Secretariat at this important event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We can't wait to have an interaction with you soon for the very relevant division concerned. And the next, our next panelist, as we all know, the science community is very important in giving us evidence-based advice to promote our policies. I would like to call on Dr. Alessanders to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Björn Olesander. I'm with the International Rice Research Institute. I'm a climate change scientist at IRRI and been with IRRI for 11 years now. I've worked in various countries in the region. And about 3 years ago, I moved to Hanoi in Vietnam, where I coordinate IRRI's portfolio. Nice to be here.
Hi, Ole. Thank you so much. And of course, we need the civil society organizations here represent. Here from the Asian Farmers Association, we have Esther. Kindly introduce yourself. I think you do better than me.
Yes, thank you, Dada. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. I am called Esther. I am the Secretary General of Asian Farmers Association. We are a regional farmers organization with 22 national farmers organizations as members in 16 countries in Asia, representing around 13 million small-scale women and men farmers, fishers, pastoralists, herders, indigenous peoples. And AFA is a member of a network of CSOs called Ad Hoc Committee, which engages the FAO, especially in its APRC processes. And I was the one volunteered by the AHC network to represent the CSOs in this meeting. Glad to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Esther. We look very much forward to what CSO will have to say about a lot of the inputs that are being shown here. Our next panelist is a representative. Well, I think Shinyi would better introduce herself, but we are really looking forward to your perspectives from the private sector as well as agribusiness and innovation. I think you wear a lot of hats, and this is our first interaction with your organization, so we would really love it for your introduction to hear from you.
Thank you, Dana, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of today's panel. So I'm Cindy Lim, Executive Director of Sustainability and Agricultural Impact at Pindor. Pindor is China's largest agricultural e-commerce platform. In 2020, we actually had over $40 billion worth of agricultural products transacted through our platform, and we're directly connecting over 12 million farmers to our 730 million consumers on our platform. So in my role, I oversee innovation as well as potential partnerships with others in the agri-food ecosystem globally. So we also sponsor research to improve agricultural productivity, and we're also working closely together with the local governments and local agronomic research institutes to bring innovations closer to farmers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I cannot wait for all our panelists to share us their insights. But before we do that, I really would like to ask our audience first about what they think is the necessary innovations that we are looking for. We would like to stop ourselves from talking for a while and ask everyone in the audience for your ideas of innovation based on what you have heard so far from all our previous speakers. So I'm going to run us through a quick interactive exercise before we ask our panelists to give their reaction, and have all those that have joined us from the region and beyond to answer the following question that will be shared on your screen. So I would like to call Yana to take us through this exercise. This is not just for our panelists, but for everyone, all participants, including panelists and speakers, to answer. Over to you, Yana.
Thank you very much, Dada. So if everyone can please go to the chat, I am sending a link where you can participate in the online poll. You just click on the link. The question is there. You have several options how to answer the question. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat and I will try to help you. After a few minutes, we will share the results on the screen so we can see actually what are the opinions and what innovations you would like to see in your countries. Over to you, Dada, and please let me know if there are any questions in the chat room on how to participate or how I can help you. Thank you.
Hi, Yana. Thank you for that. So let's give a moment. Let's try to get into the Mentimeter. Is everyone able to access the poll? Dr. Margaret, you are not responding to the poll. I can see you sitting there. Thank you, Violet, for letting us know you've accessed the poll. Okay, you are not in front of your computer. Thank you, Jericho, for getting it done. this is the moment when we are meant to play some music while you are answering. And unfortunately, I am the only Filipino who cannot sing, so I cannot entertain you guys. I just would like to say that we are looking forward to the next of these series, which is gonna be 6 weeks from now. Lillian has been unable to access the poll. It's very easy, Lillian, just click on the link. I will also, at this point, maybe read some of the questions coming from the Q&A while you are all answering the question. Dr. Sarada Rasad Mohapatra has said that, are we ready for a revolution from laboratory to land, as food grains are to be increased manifold to feed millions hungry mouth, and regards from India. I challenge anyone to please give her an answer. Tuyan Tihun, is there any program grant supporting food systems approach to transform food production to be more nature-based and sustainable in Asia? Julian, the need for ensuring better market access to the marginalized in rural areas, agree. But are these pathways unique and biased to the poor? They're being left out due to elite capture. I think that is not a question, but a statement. Question to Thierry and Dusty, do you need the larva to chickens, to feed the chickens perhaps? I hope Dusty will answer that, and Thierry. To Bo Damen, can you tell us about FAO programs in the region towards closing the income and productivity gaps between small-scale farmers and large-scale producers within countries? All right, Yana, are you ready to show results? And share your screen?
So just a second. I can see that a lot of people are actually participating. So it's very nice to actually see the graphs moving while we're talking.
You can share the screen then.
Yes.
And we will see it as they are. Okay, I cannot read this. Can you read this?
I'm trying to zoom in.
What are climate-friendly innovations that you would like to see in the food production systems in your country?
Unfortunately, Dada, I'm sorry, but I think I cannot zoom into this.
Okay, so we have divided your answers based on the division that has been set by Action Track 3 of the UN Food System Summit. The first one is on food production that protect environmental resources. Yana, can you tell me which is the leading answer towards the first section?
So the first section, it is, I'm really sorry, it's very difficult to read. I think I will, if you have data, maybe the questions in a Word document so we can post it into the chat. So it's easier for everyone to read this. So there were basically three sections.
Yeah. The three sections are protect, manage, and restore. These will be, all of the innovations are being grouped by the UN, the Secretariat to the UN Food System Summit, into these three groups from Action Track 3. And Simon, thank you so much. Simon Ritbergen is helping me from the group. It seems like the clean green supply chain is coming out first. Landscape management practices is coming out as second. Policy changes is third. Technology is moving more, is now moving into as a second choice. Thank you so much, Simon. We're gonna give you a free, I don't know, a free t-shirt for helping us. Seriously, there is a t-shirt being manufactured right now by the ASEAN Climate Resilience Network, so maybe we'll send it to you. I can see that Ole is smiling at my comments. All right, so this is Simon, is there anything else that is coming out? Can you help me more into looking at this? This is Simon Reitberger. Where is he from? Soil management, also a very, even for ASEAN Climate Resilience Network, soil management is being talked about a lot, capturing carbon from soil management. Policy changes seems to be coming out with a lot of votes as well. There is a comment on looking forward for agroforestry. Agroecology seems to be very much a popular choice. Thanks for helping me out. Food lost and waste is close behind in the choice. I think that we really do need to address food loss and waste. And in fact, I think that's the example provided by Kalawili Farm by the utilization of black soldier flies. There are now also comments, permaculture design, holistic management should become part of the national curriculum in the UK. We won't have much say on that, but we hope it also happens here in Southeast Asia. All right, so we've seen the answer. Yana, can you close now the voting, the poll?
Yes, thank you, Dada. And I promise the next exercise, it will be more clear and easy to read. So sorry for that.
Fine.
Thank you.
At least we are enable someone to win a t-shirt.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Simon, for your help. Thank you.
That is not our Simon, but Simon Wright by Beger. I think I'm murdering his name even. So sorry. So we are back to our roundtable, and our first question. You've seen, you've actually seen the answers coming out, or the inputs that were fed into the poll. And you have seen from the responses, and in line with the Food System Summit, the summit offers the region many opportunities for transforming our food systems by providing options for increasing productivity, diversification of diets, reducing post-harvest losses, improving food safety, improving the efficiency of markets, improving resilience to shocks, and improving the sustainability of food production and consumption. It's really a lot of improvement, no? So I would like to go to our roundtable discussion, to our esteemed representatives of several stakeholder groups. And I would like to ask the first and foremost and most important stakeholder, our farmer representatives sitting here with our other colleagues. I would like to ask Ibu Ika and Mrs. Mujaini, what kind of innovation you are implementing or need, especially from what you hear from farmers, that you would like to get support. Please share with us the farmer perspective on this. Ibu Ika.
Thank you.
And Mrs.
Thank you, Dada.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Mrs. Mubayina and me have been discussing about this event. So we have prepared our answer to share with you. Okay, the first question is the innovation from farmer side is agroecological practices is very important to be applied by farmers, since this is very effective and very efficient for us, so we can get the resources from the environment. We use local agents to to be our inputs of the farming. And also we use local seeds, and also we applied the climate friendly of farming practicing, such as using certain of water in the rice field. So there is a method of farming. This is intermittent irrigation, dry and wet. So it depends on the age of the rice plant. So we would like to have this kind of innovation by the farmers, recognized by the government for sure. It could be supported by the policy, the public policy in favor of agroecological farming system. So after that, after the policy changes, we hope there is the next step is the facilitation from the government, such as facility to have our, or to develop our own inputs, so we are not depend on inputs from industry. So with that situation, farmer will be more resilient, more self-sufficient, and sustainable. I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Ika. And thank you so much, Mrs. Mubayina, for your sharing on what the farmers need. It looks like you are really looking at intermittent farming and climate resilient or climate adaptive practices. So we would like to hear more about that later. Yeah. Dr. Ole Sanders, you've heard what the farmers have wanted, and how is the science community able to support farming communities by giving them what you feel is the right type of innovation?
Well, I think first we need to understand that the scientists, us, we're not only sitting in our labs and we're not only looking into our microscopes. Especially,
that's what I think you are doing.
Sorry?
That's what I thought you were doing the whole time.
Not especially. I think we researchers from the CGIAR centers, we have the aspirations to be very close to the people we work with. And we are always in regular contact with the national research partners we have, with the extension services, NGOs, also, of course, farmer organizations, and we work also ourselves in and with local communities. So I think we are at the edge of development. And then a general approach would be that we organize a policy dialogue. We work with national or local governments, again, farmer organizations, and we try to understand in certain areas what are the challenges. And then also what is actually the aspiration, what's the goal. And then we co-develop plans how to get there. And then what we generally would do is start with pilots. We work in some communities, we try some approaches that we maybe have developed somewhere else, and then see basically how do farmers adopt and adapt the technologies. And because we have to understand that technology doesn't remain the same. If we work with farmers, they explore, they change, and that's something that maybe scientists have to learn to get a bit better at, is to take a step back and to observe and to see how does it change, and not be too strict also with how a technology should be practiced. We don't want 10 farmers who practice a technology scientifically perfectly. We want millions of farmers who practice it maybe imperfectly or different. And I want to give you maybe one a recent example of how we worked. In 2016, there was a big drought basically everywhere in Southeast Asia. And with the drought comes also salinity. And one of the very hard hit areas was the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. About 300,000 hectares of rice fields were affected by salinity. And what we then did is looked into options. Can we maybe change the cropping system of coastal regions to avoid these times when we know there is high salinity? And we just went to all the Mekong Delta provinces and talked with people from all districts there, and just to understand where is there a high risk for salinity and when does it happen? Because people in the districts, they know that very well. And all we did is collected the information and structured it a bit differently. We put it into a map, we developed a climate risk map, and then worked with the Department of Crop Production here in Vietnam, and said, look, these are the high risk areas and the high risk times. Can we shift the sowing of rice a little bit earlier to avoid the high risk time, so that the rice is harvested before salinity comes? And it took about 4 years. You can imagine it's not an easy task to change a whole cropping system, but step by step, the Department of Crop Production and with local farmers sowed a bit earlier, so that in 2020, when another drought hit, only very limited areas were affected. So this was one of the examples where we really worked with a lot of local knowledge and only applied the same knowledge, worked with governments, and had a very, very nice outcome.
Thank you, Dr. Alessander, for that very concise example that shows us that actually it highlights the challenges that science or the scientific community faces, right? Because it really is very long-term and has to be very consultative. And so, yeah, that is, and I will get back to our farmer group later with ICA and ask their own experience of working with several stakeholders, including the community. So, yeah, at this point, I would like to ask, actually, because it's very nice that you gave an example of how the science community works, I would like to ask the private sector group, Ms. Xingyi, what are the type of innovations that you are looking to support coming from the private sector helmet, as well as from innovator helmet? Did the answers that come out from the poll and the answer from Ibu Ika and Mrs. Mubaina, did this reflect some of what you are working on in this area, Ms. Xingyi?
Yeah, certainly. So I think there's been a lot of great knowledge that's been shared so far in this discussion. So I think actually earlier on, Bo in his presentation, one of the recommendations was to try and lower transaction costs, right, for farmers. And that's actually a big part of what Pindor does, because we're a marketplace whereby farmers can directly list their products and then sell it on to consumers, right? And then the logistics, typically it has been fulfilled by a third-party logistics partner. So it's just a box of apples or potatoes, whatever it is, going directly from the farm to the consumer. And I think that plays a big role in also helping to reduce food loss and waste, which was one of the top sort of choices that people had voted on the Mentimeter earlier as well. So I think the way that Pindor looks at innovation, or the types of innovation we want to support, is actually very broad-based, because we're starting from the downstream side of the food value chain, and we're looking across the entire system and thinking about all the different steps in which we can improve the efficiency. So I think, to Ollie's point earlier, sometimes it's really hard to push change through, right? So you've got good science to back it up, but it took 4 years, right, for the full transition to take effect. So that's something that we're very cognizant of at Pindor as well. So since the beginning in 2015, when we were founded, we've always made it a point to work together with farmers. So we provide what we call new farmer training, and we work together with some of the agronomic institutes who would come in with the technical knowledge and basically groom up a new generation of agricultural entrepreneurs, right? So these people would get training on, how to market, how to sell their produce via e-commerce from us. And then at the same time, they get agronomic advice from the Agronomic Institute. So the idea is to first equip the villages, right, the rural communities with a pool of talent who can then mobilize their surrounding community. And I think it's also very important coming from the private sector, as well as with a tech innovator hat, to think about things along a spectrum, right? So in terms of innovations, not everything has to be very expensive or like super high tech. Right. So just, what we're doing in terms of, enabling farmers to go directly to consumers, bringing offline sales online, that already does a lot, right, to help reduce the wastage in the system by giving the farmers a better sense of what is the demand for different types of products. And then I think along those lines, as you get further up the chain, there are certain things that do require some capital. Where we see value in creating the infrastructure. So we have come in to invest in more agriculture focused logistics that can help again reduce the waste and time spent in transit. And then we also organized a smart agriculture competition where we try to invite teams with AI machine learning knowledge to compete against traditional farmers in growing strawberries, right? And then at the end of the day, we bring it all down to dollars and cents, because we think for farmers to really convince them, you need to show them, right, that it is possible to make a change and have tangible profit improvement. So whether it's selling online or whether it's using algorithms to grow strawberries, and we prove that you can grow 3 times the amount of strawberries using machine learning, using remote controls, then the farmers were convinced, right? And then they approached the new technical teams to then try and move the innovation to other parts, right? To recommend to their friends. So we think it's more of a spectrum, and it's really about getting the farmers to buy in and showing them with the numbers rather than telling them.
Wow, Shimi, what you have shared is really a breath of fresh air. It's like the millennial agribusiness model. And I think that we need to hear more and more of these thoughts, or more and more of these models and innovation coming from really fresh young blood. You've talked about e-commerce, full of talents, tech innovators, investing in logistics, even on AI or artificial intelligence. But you also emphasize that it doesn't need to be super high tech for this. And I'm sure the science community also agrees with that. And so having heard these sharings and inputs from you, from Ibu Ika, from Ole, I would like to ask the government representative, Dr. Margaret, as well as ASEAN later on, how are you planning to support these suggestions and these type of innovations that are coming out during this discussion? Dr. Margaret?
Yeah, so the government role, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the government has an important role in advocating and enabling policy environment and strategic plan of actions that are responsive and recognizing the needs of the target beneficiaries, particularly of the farmers, private sectors, and the civil society. So the government also has an important role in providing a platform to engage the research and development sectors to deliver innovative solutions, and also to partner with the private sectors through the public-private partnership, or PPP, to increase investment on innovations. So as you have heard from Ibu Ika a while ago, that they need the government to have a facilitating role for the provision of inputs to enhance productivity. Also, moreover, the government can also utilize the opportunities offered by knowledge platforms and networks, like the ASEAN Climate Resilience Network and GACSA, to support them in policy making that is informed by science and demands from the private sectors. Platforms like these are able to bring together the science community, the private sector representatives, the academia, technical experts, the farmer groups, the researchers, and the civil society organizations. So as government is a state actor, we can work with current partners to help us work with stakeholders that will allow us to develop relevant policies. So back to you, Dada.
Thank you, Dr. Margaret. That was a comprehensive reply, which really shows to me the message that government is very willing to work with several stakeholders necessary to bring about relevant policies. I really hope, but take note of all the panelists, and hopefully everyone can work with the available resources that the panelist agencies and organizations represent. And so coming from a Thai government perspective, I would like to move to a wider level by asking ASEAN, here represented by the ASEAN Secretariat, Mr. Dian Sukmajaya, as how do you see the role of ASEAN in supporting these innovations, especially since we know that we need to build better with sustainable and resilient food systems that not only meet food and nutrition needs, but also drive enduring prosperity and thriving ecosystems. Dr. Sukmajaya, perhaps you would like to give us a few pointers on how ASEAN sees itself, or what kind of innovations does ASEAN actually are looking forward to see for the benefit of the region.
Thank you, Dada, and thank you, everyone. So as already reflected by our earlier speaker, also by other panelists, talking about food system is very complex in nature. So from production, processing, transport, consumption, governance issue, and so on. At the regional level, I'm delighted to note on the result of the poll that it actually highlighted the need for clean green supply chain, and then policy changes, landscape management practices, as well as pointed out to be more specific on agroforestry, where actually at this point, ASEAN already addressed those kind of issues. So regarding this, I would like to introduce the importance of the ASEAN Integrated Food Security Framework as part of the region to ensure long-term food security system based on the immediate strategy, midterm strategy, and resilience strategy. I also would like to share under this framework, I already highlighted several issues, for example, that has been concerned by farmers and also by private sectors to promote technology and techniques to reduce post-harvest losses and reduce food waste, for example, in ASEAN member state, and coordinate and assist in overall R&D of activities, including digital transformations of the agricultural practices, and also the e-commerce to promote e-commerce, and as well as promoting R&D in alternative sources of food in terms of diversification on food sources and nutrition, as well as under this framework highlighted the expand and promote farmers' knowledge beyond agriculture, that is to include agribusiness and entrepreneurship. I think this is part of the goal of food security, not only guarantee the availability, but also its accessibility, stability, and utilization for the people in the region. And I also would like to highlight, as already touched upon by the other panelists, related to the innovation in climate smart agriculture. For example, with the support from our partners under the ASEAN GACSA Climate Smart Land Use, of which Climate Smart Climate Resilient Network, also one of these good example, is to put input on innovative technology and best practices, promote R&D in integrated farming, for example, research on tolerant varieties, where Iri already touched upon on this, promote conservation agriculture, and also organic agriculture. So further, I also would like to highlight that in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, the government and policy innovation has to be there. So at this point, ASEAN has addressed through the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework and initiated several activities related to the food system, global food and regional food system, to support this, in particular to address resilience, also to address the issue on logistical disruption. For example, as already mentioned on clean green supply chains, ASEAN has developed ASEAN guideline on promoting responsible investment and enhanced dialogue on food value chain with the support from Japan, enhancing food supply chains by initiating several measures to promote acceleration of transformation of food agriculture through digital technology and innovation. And then promote sustainable agriculture and climate smart agriculture practices as part of the long-term strategy for sustainable food production. I think there are many issues on innovation at the regional level being addressed by ASEAN member states, as well as at the regional level with the high-level support from the leaders and from the minister. I think that's all, Dada. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dian. That was very informative. There was so much going on, as we know, in ASEAN. And also it's good that you gave us examples of existing initiatives that have support at the moment. And I hope that our participants listen to that and can get in touch with you if they want more information on this. So I've asked the private sector, I've asked the farmer organization, I've asked the science community. I would like to ask a representative from the civil society organization, how do they see their role in all of this, in facilitating this coordination or as an oversight or overseeing over what government is doing? I would like to hear from Esther. What do you think are the innovations that CSOs are looking forward to, and how do you see your role in it?
Okay, thank you, Dada. Now, as a CSO, we would like to emphasize that CSOs are composed of networks of organizations, and these organizations can be social movements or people's organizations like farmers' organizations, as well as non-government organizations. So we are a farmers' organization, but we are also a CSO, part of CSO. So as CSO, we always start innovating based on the problems we see and why the problem. We see that the problem that our food system is very much broken. Since the 1960s, during the Green Revolution in Asia, we have embarked on an industrialized, chemical-intensive agriculture system and destructive and abusive exploitation of natural resources with technologies given mostly by international outside researchers using a top-down approach. The farmers are usually mere beneficiaries or takers of innovations and projects, and the innovations are usually taken in silos with implementers uncoordinated at all levels. And lastly, agriculture, especially family farming agriculture, has been very much neglected in terms of policy and program and budget priorities. We're happy to see the results of the Mentimeter. And I'm thinking, you know, many of these technologies are not new to family farming organizations and to CSOs. In fact, many of us are doing all this: agroecology, sustainable fisheries, sustainable forest management, sustainable pasture management, integrated water management, soil management, and in fact, integrated, diversified, organic farming practices where we integrate crops, trees, livestock, fisheries, fruits and nuts, even flowers in our farms. But what can work to upscale this? Let me give you 4 points. First, we need to recognize, stakeholders to recognize and support the agency of family farmers, fishers, forest dwellers, livestock farmers, indigenous peoples to build and strengthen their capacities.
Esther, that's actually my second question. What needs to change? So
okay.
Can I ask you to put a pause on that?
Okay.
And I will ask everyone. I will just reiterate and repeat your question. A lot of the innovations that we are being given as choices A lot of the innovation ideas we have heard from before. Some we have not heard and some we have already heard. But what really needs to change in order for us to see more of these being supported and implemented? And so I would like to ask everyone, before I ask Esther, I would like again to have a poll with everyone, including the participants, to answer this second question. And before we move on towards the ending of our roundtable, I would like to ask everyone, why do you think Esther actually give a very good sharing that these are not new? Some of the innovations, aside from Shini's sharing of like artificial intelligence, for example, perhaps that is new in e-commerce, but some of the answers that came out from the Mentimeter, we have heard before. Let's ask the question, what needs to change in order for us to have this innovation? So Yana, I give it over to you so that we can ask everyone into a poll.
Yes, thank you very much, Dada. I promise this poll is way easier and it will be much more easier to read. So it's actually a Zoom poll, so you will see it right now. It's actually a multiple choice, so you can select how many answers you want. So Dada, let me know when then I can show the results.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what do you think needs to change to support these innovations? These are some of the prepared answers, and we hope we will compare it with what Esther has prepared as her call to action in order to get most of our innovations be further supported. Is everyone voting? I encourage everyone, please, to try and vote now. Thailand has left. Thailand, we're now left with an empty room in Thailand. So, Yana, do we have the replies now? Can you share?
I would encourage still more people to vote. There's slightly over 60% of the participants that voted. So if you are okay with it, I would give it a few more seconds so we can have more answers, and I will share it in a minute.
There is a comment that a more system and holistic approaches as food systems to be applied should be added in the option. So does this mean that the option should be implementation of a food system approach? It would be nice if some of these comments do not come with credit as to who said it. Would be good if you write and mention your affiliation or your name.
Okay, Dada, so I'll end the poll right now and sharing the results right now.
So the result comes out really heavily with a lot of emphasis on the role of government in giving support through policy and finance. I think this is also seconded by empowering communities, and the next one is private sector engagement. And I think there is also for both technological support from international development agencies and science communities tied up with individual citizens' way of thinking. So these are the results. We are going to take note of them and share them with you. And I would like to call on now Ibu Esther, if you can share, what do you think needs to change? Does the poll reflect what you were about to share with us earlier?
Yes, I think so.
More specific. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. So let me go through. First is when you say empowering communities. You said it's the second in the Mentimeter. We mean it for us. We mean it to recognize and support the agency of family farmers, fishers, forest dwellers, livestock farmers, local communities, indigenous peoples, and family farming communities. So build and strengthen the capacities to engage their governments so that we can claim our rights, so that we can influence our governments to make policies friendly to nature, so we can deliver effective services to our members and constituents. So we can develop in situ farm, more trained farm extensionists, veterinary services, even helping in getting good prices for our sustainably grown products. For example, our member in India, SEWA, has a very good system of training trainers who will then give services to about 50 women farmers in the village, and the villagers give her a fee for the service she renders. I remember our member in Cambodia has started with only 20 practitioners of the system of rice intensification, but after 10 years, because of the farmer learning circle, the participatory action researches in the farms, around 200,000 farmers has adopted the technology. And even Iris said that that person in Iris says he is amazed by how good the extension was on SRI. We have cooperatives of farmers in the Philippines who have grown big and is now offering full value chain of services, processing their sustainably grown products and able to respond to the finance needs of their members. The second, you talked about government policies and programs. So what should change in terms of government policies? There must, and priorities and actions, we think there must be an integrated multidisciplinary approach using ecosystem and landscape approaches so that the effect on the ecosystem will have more impact and relate these all aspects on the food system. It will be difficult, for example, to do sustainable fisheries when the terrain, there is in the terrain part of that ecosystem, there is much chemical farming going on. Also integrate the different elements in the food system from production to marketing and trade. I remember one conversation we had with an organic farmers group who ceased to do organic farming because the price of organic rice was the same as the non-organic, and the government was subsidizing the hybrid variety of rice with chemical fertilizers, but no subsidy for organic rice farming. So there must be an interrelation and integration of these policies, of these programs using an ecosystem and landscape approach. And third, the policies that support rights to land, water, forests, and even seeds, because these natural resources are basic. Without them, there is no natural base by which farmers can produce. So when we talk of nature-based production, if there is no land, no water, no forest, if these are being grabbed, we cannot upscale it. And lastly, the support of strengthening the local and domestic markets. So for example, our member in India is promoting the 100-mile radius of, and I think this is very applicable now when we have this COVID-19. Okay, so and as a conclusion, what will be the strategic support of CSOs? So we in the 4 aspects of interventions. First, in helping the farmers to organize themselves and build a strong movement. Helping in the policy advocacy work by, for example, conducting policy researches and studies, helping them analyze situation. Third is capacity building where it is needed. So build their skills and knowledge. Fourth, helping them in the learning and communications and visibility by documenting their experiences, for example, in video and in training guides. I think the farmers need help there. And lastly, in business development servicing, like guiding business development services so that their cooperatives and their enterprises that enter into the value chain of services will be visible, will be economically viable. Thank you, Dada.
Thank you, Ibu Esther. That is really a lot and a very good way of rounding up what needs to be changed. I would like, however, our panelists, if there's anything that, and it really highlights the role of CSOs, which is really overseeing all over the other stakeholders, government, farmers organizations, and private sector. So that is really a good input and sharing from you. I wonder if some of our panelists have something to add as to what needs to change that Ibu Esther has not mentioned yet. Something that you would like to share from our panelists before we round up our roundtable. I can see that Xin Yi in front of me would probably want to add something from your side.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just go quickly. I think Esther made a lot of good points, and actually the poll results were very interesting for me to see as well, because I think when it comes to what I hope would change or improve, I think one thing is that there needs to be more private sector involvement, but there should also be, I think, a more systematic approach as well for the government or the public sector to engage with the private sector. So in China, we've managed to do that on a provincial government level. So we work directly with the Yunnan provincial government to test out some pilot farms in the impoverished counties in Yunnan, right? So it's a more, I guess, direct approach, but it is also constrained in that, we have to negotiate and do it sort of like province by province, county by county. So it's a bit slow. So if there is actually a more systematic way in which the public sector can rope in the private sector, that I think that would really help to scale up some of the innovations that we need.
Thank you, Shini. And I think I agree with you. Increased coordination and cooperation is really an organization, because there's so many initiatives that are just not talking with one another. And so with ASEAN Climate Resilience Network, with GACSA, with FAO, and even with GIZ support for the ASEAN Climate Resilience Network, this is really what we aim to do, is to bring it all together and help put what I call method to the madness. Is there anything from ASEAN or the government that they would like to mention? Because I would like to ask last the farmers group from Ibu Ika. First from the science community. Okay, I think Dian has a raised hand, so please go ahead.
Science communities or?
Yeah, Dian, you have a raised hand, so
Okay.
I ask
Okay,
you
thank
next.
you. I think I would like to echo what already emphasized by our colleague from Farmer Association related to the importance of the governments, as mentioned on the poll. Actually, like government support through policy and finance, and then empower communities, private sector engagement. It is part of the role of the government in facilitating the issue. At the regional level, I also would like to point it out that ASEAN member states hold an important role as a main actor to promote implementation of regional policy tools. For example, several regional policy tools, like I mentioned earlier, on ASEAN guideline for promoting climate smart agriculture, and then ASEAN guideline for promoting responsible investment, guideline on agroforestry, and then introducing best practices, good agriculture practices, good aquaculture, good animal husbandry, and then also the ministerial statement on gender mainstreaming. Without the active role of the government at the national level, those regional policy is just the book. But I think with the commitment from the current member states, they saw a very interest in implementing some regional policy, like for agroforestry. They already, in 3 countries, they developed the national roadmap for agroforestry development. And then for climate smart agriculture, they do some research on diversification, or the research on rice, what's called variants of rice and everything that can adapt to the climate change, drought and flood. I think this is also part of the good example for the government role, and that is need to be changed. That there should be champion at the regional level to lead one initiative. For example, climate resilient network might be one of the good example where Thailand saw their leadership to take it as their important national role at the regional level. And then if we talk about nature-based production, although ASEAN has yet intensive dialogue on this, but under 4C cooperation, we just had recently linking wild food with the biodiversity, where Esther also there. So we are pointed out that there is an opportunity as well to promote dialogue on non-timber forest product, in particular wild food utilization, to also support the food security at the regional level, despite of many challenges that facing at this point, as pointed out also by our colleague, by other panelists. And I think as also the other panelists mentioned, we need also to take this as a holistic approach. So aside of the ASEAN integrated framework on food security, ASEAN also has ASEAN multi-sectoral framework on climate change, agriculture and forestry toward food security. I think this is also complement the implementation of the AIFS framework that need to be improved and further enhanced to have more governance and policy innovation that reflect the resonance of the national needs and also other stakeholders like CSO and private sector. We are trying to involve CSO in our dialogue and also private sector in several sectoral bodies under our sectors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dian. And I just would like to quickly mention there is a comment from the side, especially coming from ASEADRA. They're working on rural development master plan in ASEAN. This belongs to the socio-cultural pillar, and we hope that their work would also be integrated with this work, with the direction of food systems as to how we are going. Dian put forward the notion of the success factor of having champions, and this is one of the key success factor for enforcing and having transformative change. At this point, I would like to call on Thailand representative to give us some insights on what needs to change from their perspective, since they are also a big champion in transformative change. Dr. Margaret?
Yes, I just would like
not yet mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. So I just like to. Dian already mentioned all the good points and the good insights. However, I would just like to stress and emphasize on this current initiative on the UN Food System Summit dialogue, particularly the webinars and the dialogues that is being organized, which is very timely and very relevant. So take this an opportunity and take this as a platform wherein we could really put forward the changes we need for our resilient food systems in the region. Thank you, Dada.
Thank you, Dr. Margaret. I just received a question on that they are surprised that you are wearing a uniform. As a personal question.
It's Monday, Dada. It's Monday.
It's Monday and there is a uniform. Normally she wears a karaoke singing contest uniform. On the light of that, let us end our Dr. Ole Sanders, any quick point from the science community?
A very quick comment also to what Ginny has said earlier on private sector engagement. They are, of course, a very important scaling partner. But one thing that is maybe lacking is the development of new technologies. So the private sector, of course, has an interest in investing into technologies to adapt to their respective systems, because there is maybe a business case attached to that, something improves, that better natural resource use efficiency, something. But what is largely lacking is private sector funding for what we call upstream research, discovery of new innovations, trying out new ideas. And that's, of course, a very risky investment. Lots of the ideas that we scientists have won't push through and fail. But it's important to note that we also need to make sure that our portfolio of available technologies needs to be filled up, and that's still largely funded by the public sector. And I think here we should think how private sector companies can take on more responsibility. For example, through research funds. There's one very good example that I can give is AXA, I think French insurance company. They have for many, many years a research fund that they fund postdoc positions with very open outcomes and to try new ideas. And I think this is something that we would like to see more.
Thank you so much, Ole. That is very, very important. And this is something that has not been said before. So I hope we will have more conversations on this topic later on, perhaps on the second series. And so rounding up our roundtable, I would like to go back to our Ibu Ika and Mrs. Mubayina. What do you think needs to change? Please let us know rather quickly. Yeah. You are muted. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dada. So we've been listening to you all, the panelists, and Esther may mention so many things that I do not need to say more than that. Okay, but there are still changes that we would like to see. This is the decade of family farming, starting from 2019 2028. So this is our very big opportunity to get recognized by the government. Especially since we are very, very small family farmers, fishers, and others like Esther mentioned. So we need acknowledged or recognized by the government. So during the UNDFF, we get quite many gains from this decade to have policy changes that come from the farmers organization, fishers, women, youth, and so on. And we put our needs, what we need in the policy. So every country has to have a national action plan to implement this decade of family farming. Why this is important? Because we feed the world, caring for the earth. So that is important thing in the food system. From the production step, distribution, consumption, and etc. So we need this political will from the government and also from our parliament, since they are sometimes our close friends with the parliament, so we can talk with them, and then we are drafting some policy that we need, and then the parliament discuss it with the government. And the other thing is the research. Public research should be back to the public needs. For example, farmers. There was some research on the climate change, and other research, but sometimes the research end up on the table or in the drawer of the researchers. The research results should be applied, should be advocated to the government, so it become a policy. So we are advocating the policy based on research. I think that's
Okay, I think we have lost Ibu Ika. They are quite in a remote location, but I think that rounds up our roundtable discussion. Thank you so much, Ibu Ika, if you are still there at this point. And I would like to thank our panelists as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We have heard from our roundtable and have received input from you, the participants. I, however, want to move forward and contextualize the call from the UN Secretary General. I want us to bring it closer to home. I want us to think, how do we leverage the momentum created by the UN Secretary General's Food System Summit call to launch bold new actions to transform the way we produce and consume food? Most important, I would like us to use our collective innovative platforms like ASEAN-CRN, GACSA, the CSOs that joined us here to commandeer efforts towards sustainable food system. I'm happy that we are joined by Dhanush Dinesh, who will provide a brief synthesis of the key messages from the discussions and give us inputs on transforming agricultural innovation for people, nature, and climate. Dhanush is the head of partnerships and outreach for the CGIAR research program on climate change, agriculture, and food security, CCAFS. They've been the science behind CRN, actually, and leads the cross-cutting platform on partnerships and capacity for scaling climate-smart agriculture. There's a lot to be said, but one thing I wanted to say is Dhanush is also innovation lead for Action Track 3. And not only that, in the lead up to COP26, we haven't talked about COP26 until now, he co-chairs the Transforming Agriculture Innovation for People, Nature, and Climate campaign, which is part of the UK's Nature campaign for the COP in partnership with the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. We're very lucky. He's always in demand. I just hijacked him right now from the World Economic Forum, I think. So I hope that the World Economic Forum won't hate me, but we are very lucky to have Dhanush Dinesh with us today. Thank you so much, Dhanush.
Thanks, Dada, for this very kind introduction. I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah. So firstly, let me first wish you and others calling in from Bali a very happy Balinese New Year. And I hope you got your internet back. Yeah, and so it was really, as Dada mentioned, I had to attend another meeting for a brief period, but I've been following this discussion quite closely, and a colleague has also been following it. And it was really interesting for me to listen to these discussions around innovation and nature coming from Southeast Asia. I think there are a few things I want to say here. So one is certainly, as Dada alluded to, this link between the Food Systems Summit and the COP26, which happens in November, and the Food Systems Summit is in September. And you've already heard from Joe Campari, who's chairing the Nature Positive Production Action Track. And he always makes this point that we need to hand carry the outcomes of Food Systems Summit to COP26, because it's crucially important that both these agendas are connected. And I would try to highlight, based on your comments, how we can actually do this. And I think there are a few common elements here. So one of the things that's come up in different intervention is the climate link, because many of the innovations discussed, and it was nice to see that example from Thierry, has a very strong climate dimension. So there is certainly, when we are looking at the portfolio of innovations being put forward by the region, there's certainly that climate link, which makes it relevant both for the Food Systems Summit as well as for COP26. The second is very much the nature link. And obviously this discussion's been linked to the Action Track 3 on nature positive production. And this has come up in several remarks as well. But when we look at COP26 this year with the UK's presidency, they're really highlighting the role of nature. And they're calling it a nature COP even, you know, how can the COP deliver for nature, address nature loss, and can be aligned with the Convention for Biological Diversity as well. So I think having that focus on climate and nature, that's really positive as it fits both agendas quite nicely. So as Dada mentioned, I have two hats among others, and one is as innovation lead for Action Track 3, and the second is on agricultural innovation for COP26. So connecting these two agendas and what has been said, I believe there are 4 key things that we can do collectively in this region and as well as others. So firstly, it's about investment in innovation and where we are at. And Ola mentioned this, that we're still reliant very much on public funding. Bo also mentioned this in his presentation, the focus on R&D in the region. So globally, when we look at investment into agriculture research and development, it's about $56 billion a year. That's a lot of money. And there is a question, are these investments getting us towards the SDGs? And Dada, you made that very nice opening to say, when we started at 2015, we thought we would get there, but we're running out of time now. So I would argue that we have this huge investment going into agricultural research and development, which is not necessarily aligned to climate or to nature as much as it should be. So there is a need to shift this investment into climate positive, nature positive pathways. And so if we are looking specifically at Southeast Asia, so we're seeing about $2.7 billion a year being invested into agricultural research and development. And 80% of that comes from just 3 countries, Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. So it's not just reorienting investment, it's also increasing investment. I think it's especially crucial for Southeast Asia, where we need to increase the investment into agricultural research and development, and especially in the countries which are underinvesting. And that could be from national resources or international resources, but we really need to address that innovation gap, because as Ola mentioned, that there is a gap here. In our portfolio of innovations, we don't have very many. We need much more investment into innovation. The second is really what we need to think about is about institutions. The institutions that we have set up for innovation, be it national institutions or international institutions like the one I work for, are they set up to facilitate those innovation processes? And I really enjoyed all those discussions and points from Ibu Ika on linking innovation to scale. And I think that's absolutely crucial. So I think we need to rethink the institutions we work for. Are they set up to achieve the SDGs? How can they be realigned? Do we need new institutions? If so, let's think about coming together to create them. And I think this is why the region is really unique, because you have the amazing Climate Resilience Network, which is an innovative institution that brings together countries, expertise, partners, and so on. So we really need to think about how CRN can support this transformation, and perhaps drawing on other institutions as well in the region, transforming institutions. The third point I wanted to make, which it's already been alluded to, is this emphasis on scale. So in the Food System Summit discussions, when we talk about innovation, what we mean is very simple. It's something new and useful. It can be a new idea, or it can be a new way of doing things. So listening to many of the ideas that were presented here today, as well as others, there are lots of very good ideas out there. But why are they not being scaled? And this could be because there is no conducive policy environment, there might not be sufficient investment. There are certain things which are not working in the environment, which is not enabling us to scale things which we know works. We're calling these the lock-ins. The system is locked in at certain points, and we need to go and identify each specific locked in. Why is this locked in this way, and how can we unlock that? So what we're thinking about when we try to achieve scale is to think very clearly, very critically about the lock-ins and try to unlock them. And I think this is something we can learn both from successes in the region, but also the challenges. And it was really interesting to see the results of that poll that you had, which talked about many of the key issues in the region. So can we dive deeper into those issues and think about why is this not happening? And think about specific context and make that happen. Can we unlock our ability to scale? And the final point, and I think that's really what we're doing here today, is the need for inclusive and evidence-based dialogues. And because we can do all of these things, we can increase investment, realign institutions, we can identify models to scale, but it's not going to happen unless we talk to each other. And especially talking to people outside of our comfort zones who are crucial for us to achieve scale. So I would really like to congratulate you for hosting this regional dialogue, because this is exactly what we need, because we need to bring people together around these innovations, around these ideas, talk about difficult issues that we might have, because only by talking and having an open dialogue can we move forward. So in the run-up to both these crucial summits, I would really suggest, encourage, and express my willingness to partner to have more of these inclusive dialogues around the first three topics that I mentioned. So I think that's where I would leave it now. Overall, huge thanks for inviting me and really exciting discussions. Thank you, Dada, and thanks everyone.
Thank you so much, Danush. The gratitude is coming really from us. Thank you. I think you have mentioned so many important things, especially the simple way of rethinking our organization, rethinking our ways of doing things, and more of this locking and unlocking will take place in the next of our series. I think you have just given us the theme and the inspiration again to do this. I would just like to say that Danush has been the inspiration for us to hold this regional dialogue, as he has invited me from the very first global dialogue. And so it's such a good way to round up and finish our session with Danush with us. And I would like to call on our moderator, Lufingo, to give us the closing remarks from our organizers, from our co-organizers. Also, I would like to remind Ole that there are scientific questions, research and development questions, and the Q&A that perhaps you would like to address. So Lufingo, may I call on you to bring us back to the closing remarks or closing ceremony?
Thank you very much, Dada. Thank you for that, our curator, Dada, for taking us through what an inciting interactive session. And to our previous speakers and the roundtable, thank you very much for sharing. So as we come to a close, I would like to call upon His Excellency Hans Hoogerven to provide us some closing remarks and charge us forward on the way forward shaping pathways to sustainable food systems. His Excellency Hoogerven is the co-chair of the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. He is also ambassador and the permanent representative of the Netherlands to the United Nations Rome-based agencies. His Excellency, we are honored with your presence. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Lufingo. Ladies and gentlemen, Dada, it's great to be with you this afternoon, and of course in Rome this morning. And of course I will say good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, because I think people all around the world are participating in this exciting dialogue of the Southeast Asia. And I would like to thank our chair and our host, the government of Thailand, for organizing this event. It's a very important event because, and I was listening into the discussion this afternoon and for here this morning. It's exciting to see the positive tone which I've seen in the discussions. The focus on, I would say, solutions instead of only problems. And I think that's what we need when we look to our challenges ahead. And we all know that COVID-19 has plunged our world in the biggest crisis of recent history. And of course, we also know that it has come on top of already existing global challenges, like more than 700 people living in hunger, more than 2 billion people who don't have access to safe, affordable and nutritious food, and 1.6 people having obesity. And at the same time, we are losing 1/3 of our produced food every year. And let's not forget the crisis of biodiversity and the loss of forest. In short, I think the vulnerabilities of our food system have been laid bare clearly. And we have, of course, our agenda 2030. So we know what it has to take to get to our solutions. But we also know that we are lagging far behind in implementing our commitments towards Agenda 2030. And if there's one moment, I would say, for us as countries, as stakeholders, to unite, it is now. We are United Nations. We are the platforms which are needed to show us the way forward, making sure that we don't leave anybody behind. But moreover, it's much more important to join in action at the global level, but more importantly, at the national level. And when I was listening into the discussions, I saw many good examples already in practice in your region. And it's important that we have this session, because listening to these examples, we can see how we can scale up these examples. It's about also empowering communities with public, private funding and with support. But moreover, I think, and that I very much like this in this session, is that we put the farmers again in the center. Because the food system, a food system approach starts with the farmers, and especially, of course, family farmers. And when we speak about the Food System Summit, it's important that we don't get another wish list, what we wish to do. It's important that we focus on action, that we focus on the clear game changers and not general ideas what should be done. And we know that action is needed across multiple stakeholder groups and sectors, looking to the national circumstances and possibilities. And there is no time, as was said clearly also by Dada, there's no time and no place for silos. We have to break down the silos, and that's what we have done, for example, within the Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture, focusing on climate smart agriculture. And in practice, we have seen that we are implementing it, but it is difficult. And for that, we need an interdisciplinary approach and platforms, leading to solutions which can be implemented on the ground, leading to food production and consumption, which can deliver nutritious health in quantity, quality, and accessibility for all. And of course, it has to be done with all stakeholders. And there, I think we should not only focus, and we often do that too much, only on, I would say, the governments. Of course, the governments play a central role. But it's also that we have to work with the private sector, because we need their investments, we need their capacity, their technologies to improve our production, to have better seeds, but also have better solutions for finding a balance between production and biodiversity and nature. And we have seen that the private sector is willing to invest. The example of food losses is being mentioned. We are now working on a mechanism where government, private sector, and international organizations join together in making funding available for concrete food loss projects on the ground. For example, also taking care of first risks. That kind of a cooperation should be the example forward when we speak about sustainable food systems and an action summit. And of course, when we speak about innovation, everybody says we need innovation. It's not only new innovation. We can learn a lot from indigenous innovations, but also those have to be made available. And it's especially that we have to focus on innovation which is accessible, affordable, and available to all farmers, not only to a specific group, but how can we make these available, for example, via extension services on the ground to all the farmers. And in this, I think we have to recognize the critical role that your region is playing in securing your food systems at the regional scale and at the national scale. And I think with that, recognizing that via a cooperation in a regional scale, we can move forward. But before I close, I would like to make one remark. I didn't hear so much about the youth, but I think the youth is the agents of change. And I'm motivated by what I've seen by many youth groups in preparing for the summit. I think we have to leave them a planet and a global community that they deserve, not one that will greet them with challenges and inequity. And I think we need their fresh ideas and their admirable determination for finding solutions. And I hope that we can involve them more, and also your region, in finding solutions for your food systems to make sure that they have a future as well. And I think with empowering them, young people can become the global citizens and the final champions for peace and food security in the region. With that, I would like to thank all of you for participating in this event. It shows with your positive approach to the problems and finding solutions together, this gives us hope for a more secure, safe planet and really implementing a food system approach. Thank you very much.
Excellency, thank you very much for those parting words. We really appreciate it. May I now also call upon Bo Damin on behalf of FAO-RAP. Could you please give us your closing remarks?
Thanks very much, Lufingo, and thanks to everyone who's participated and engaged in this dialogue over the past 2 hours or so. I won't take up too much time. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the organizing team from the Global Alliance on Climate Smart Agriculture, from the team at ASEAN Climate Resilience Network for bringing this together. Thank you guys, and I'm really looking forward to another 2 engagements where I think we'll try to build on the lessons learned from this event, and try to do our best to make it as innovative and also inclusive as possible, given the restrictions we face at the moment, doing these sorts of things virtually. Just reflecting on the discussions today, I really like the points made by Esther that a lot of the innovations that we're talking about, and these are the types of innovations that were raised by Ibu Ika and Mrs. Mubayina, is that a lot of these innovations actually aren't new. And a big part of the problem when it comes to the scaling question that Danush was talking about is how do we reduce the risks and costs that farmers face, smallholder farmers in this region, when they're looking to move towards these types of more innovative, nature-positive production systems. And that's a challenge that we're going to have to engage with a bit more. I think that some of the innovations we heard today, for example, the types of technology platforms that Xinyi was talking about are really important in a way to address this type of issue. As I mentioned, and as Ole mentioned as well, research and development has been a big part of the solution in the past, which has enabled us to achieve so much in terms of reducing food insecurity around the region. It's going to be part of the way we tackle these challenges moving ahead in the future. So I think there's still a lot to discuss. I think one thing we didn't get to reflect on too much today, and maybe something we can look at in the future, is a related challenge about whether the type of transformation we're expecting from farmers, from the core food production and distribution system, is it matching, the expectations or preferences of consumers at the other end? I talked a little bit about some of the trends we expect to see in terms of consumption, and some of the preferences, the shifts that we're seeing put additional pressure on our producers. And one thing that really stood out is that need for policymakers at national and regional level to go along with with producers to provide some level of certainty and support in helping them meet what is actually a very dynamic and changing food system. So yeah, first step. But thank you everybody for joining on behalf of the regional office. I really appreciate dedicating your time, and thanks to everybody who has organized this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bo. Excellent. Look out for the next installment And to our host, Thailand, who's also the chair of ASEAN, we would like to welcome you to give us your parting shots. Thank you.
Okay, this increased participants representing Thailand as chair of ASEAN Climate Resilience Network. I am pleased to deliver the closing remarks. But before we come to the conclusion of this productive webinar, I wish to commend each one of you for your active participation and contribution. Every views you share today are all valuable and will be accounted for to enable us draw up the innovations need to support the nature positive sustainable food systems, identify the change needs to promote this innovation and how we could base ourselves these ideas that would ensure implementation, policy advocacy, and scaling up. I have learned so much from the diversity and expertise of the presentations. And I hope that you have as well. More than this, I have also become excited to learn of all these innovations. Some are new and some are being practiced, but obviously we need of wider support. I would like to thank our wonderful co-organizers for this pioneer dialogue on food system in the region. And of course, the facilitator, I hope that our participants not only were just passive listeners, but also able to think, act, and network within the limited time that we had. In other words, be inspired to be engaged in crafting our ways forward the climate-friendly and nature-based food systems. If you feel there is not enough time, fortunately, this is not the last that we have. We will have a seminar, a similar dialogue. Our network and partner, FAO and GACSA, will bring your insight into deeper connection with food system in the next 2 sessions, resulting in concrete, tangible recommendations that will be sure to be carried forward to the UN Food System Summit and even all the way to the UNFSSD Convention of Party 26 this year. Transformative change does not happen overnight. We need to articulate exactly the change that we want to happen, as well as the barrier that prevent change from happening. This is important, and as ASEAN-CRN, as its policy makers in drafting relevant policy in food production within the agriculture sector, we hope that support from stakeholders will soon be coming in such a coordinated and organized manner. Thanks again for your active participation and see you on the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have had some very, very exciting and good deliberations and commitments. What do you think, Dada?
Very good.